Is that the guy is like that's spoken? That's what she said. That's spoken to her. I said, you know, I want to complain to you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Itos.
Good to see you again. I need to see you in person. I will come and look for you.
No problem. No problem.
In person. Maybe we should give some minutes, right? Now, how many minutes should we give? I'm asking my Olaolu now.
Like, how many people are we expecting? How many more people are we expecting?
We are expecting
Usually,
like 15.
All right,
And we
so
can-
let's give 5 more minutes. I know that we should wait for more people, but at the same time, it is not fair on the people that are already waiting, because they were here on time and then they have to wait for people that were tardy. So we can just give them 5 minutes.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear me, I want to just say hello back to me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Muhammad, Olakunle, Bernard, Anthony, Zainab. I hope you guys can hear me properly. So while we're waiting for others to join, for today, for last week actually, we did ethics and compliance by Mr. Francis Achebe, and today we'll be moving to operational risk by Mr. Olaoluwa Owojodu. And
one of the topics on our business advisory series, startup series. Today, in the room, our season experts also is going to be talking about operational risk from a business perspective. done it over and over age. I think his profile was put up some minutes ago. This is what he has done. He was the first to connect to the infrastructure at NIPS, the mobile POS. And so he's seeing operational risk in different dimensions, also co-founder. Please welcome. I will allow you to welcome to the floor. Please see you again. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Aitwas. Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing?
We are great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bernard. I think I know at least one person here. I'm familiar with Olakunle Sholari. Olakunle, how is your project going?
That's why I'm here.
What did you say?
I said that's why I'm here.
Well, are you still on the same code project or you're doing something else?
No, I'm on the same project, sir.
All right. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So happy to be with you guys. Zainab, Prince, I already mentioned Bernard, Anthony, Mohammed, and Aida. All right. So today I'm talking about operational risk. I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to walk you through, what it means, how to prepare for it, how to mitigate against it, and all that. If you have any question, just please either you drop a comment or you raise up your hand. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Please, can someone just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, sounds good. All right, so over the course of the class, we're going to talk about the introduction, what does it mean, the definition, examples. We're going to talk about different classifications of operational risk. We're going to talk about there's operational risk assessment matrix. We're going to talk about the different stages, and then we'll conclude. All right, so let's start with pretty much the definition. So just from your point of view, what do you think operational or even business risk, what does that mean to you? So I'm not asking for like a Google definition or dictionary definition, but from your own understanding, what do you think this means? Anyone?
Okay, from my understanding, I think there's this part of the business analysis that we call SWOT. That's strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So from my own understanding, I think the threat there simply means identifying those potential obstacles that are you are likely to encounter as you operate your business, and being able to put guidelines or checks and balance in place to help mitigate those threats. So I think from my own understanding, that's what operational risk is.
All right, so that's fantastic, right? Because I'm sure that that's just fantastic. That is actually what it means, and from what Bernard shared, what that also means is that it is important that you identify it, because if you don't, you're gonna have this fantastic solution, and you would have done all the work, and then something along the line will just break it, and then everything collapses. So that's very, very important. So I have a definition up here. I'm trying to change my slide. Okay, it's up now. All right, so it says business risk is the exposure a company or organization has to factor that will lower has to factor that will lower its profits or lead it to fail. So the exposure or the risks that an organization has to factor, because if you do not factor it, so that factor should be factored, there should be no S there. If you do not factor it, it's going to lead you to trouble. That is just what it means. There's a Basel definition. Basel is some standard. There's a Basel definition that says that it is the risk of loss resulting from inadequate or failed internal processes, people and systems, or from external events. Now, what that means is that ideally, if your organization is very well run, you would have systems and processes in place to make sure that operational risk or business risks ideally are identified and taken care of, so that they do not lead to calamity or something terrible in the future. But that is just really what operational risk is about. And so examples. All right, so I have a few examples here that we'll just run through. Enterprise-wide disruption. So let me try and give an example of enterprise-wide disruption of operational risk. This is a situation where, for some things that are completely out of your control, something happens and the business that you are doing is no longer relevant. So a typical example would be something that happened to maybe the cameras a long time ago, because like you guys know, innovation is always ongoing. Or even if I want to take it like way back, I'll probably say maybe like the telegram. I don't know if you guys know what they call telegram, but there used to be something that people used to communicate long distance before the phones were invented. It was a telegram, and we had telegram machines, and we had people that were doing telegrams. And a good example, the biggest telegram company at that time, does anybody know? The biggest telegram company. Anyone?
Maybe AT&T.
No. Well, good guess anyway. So the biggest telegram company was Western Union. So Western Union actually started out as a telegram company, and if you look at Western Union now, they are doing something that was completely different from their telegram days. But that is the fact that that's a company that lasts, because you need to know that there's always going to be innovation. Whatever it is that you are doing now that you are making so much money from may not exist in the next 5-10 years. So it depends on how you want to play it. Do you want to pivot into something else, or are you going to break down the entity to do something else or something? But the important thing is that the organization is not supposed to just die because this is no longer relevant. So a typical example is things like that, Telegram, when innovations take you out of business, or even the time of digital cameras like a Kodak that I think I mentioned earlier. So you need to be able to have sight of that to say, okay, this is how we are doing things now, but these people are coming into the game and there's going to be a major disruption. There's also fraud by employees, so there've been instances where, people are fraudulent anyway. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, people are fraudulent. Initially, I wanted to say, Nigerians, but then I said that's not fair to Nigerians. We have more of a branding problem because there's fraud everywhere, like everywhere, but people just take it as one of those things. But when it happens by a Nigerian, it then becomes like a big deal. Do any of you guys know Elizabeth Holmes? Has anybody heard that name before? Elizabeth Holmes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So Elizabeth Holmes is they've done movies about her, they've done series about her, they've written books about her, and she's a white person, American, blue eyes, female, and she started a company that was selling nothing. However, she got I can't remember, maybe it was $3 or $4 billion valuation, out of nothing. She lied to investors that her company was able to solve XYZ, but they did not have the technology, they did not have the expertise, they did not have anything. And she kept lying and lying and lying that she was solving those problems. Things were so bad that she would, customers would come, because what she was selling was that she had this machine that could just take a drop of blood and do like a full health tests, blood check, everything, which is a solution that doesn't exist, because usually when you want to do a blood test, they take like a syringe and they take your blood, but she now had this technology that said, the way people test for blood sugar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the way they test for blood sugar. They have this needle that they just prick your finger with. And with that one drop of blood, they can test for blood sugar. So she started claiming that she could do blood tests, the way you do blood sugar test. And of course, she had this fantastic story of how she doesn't like the sight of blood, blah, blah, blah. So, so everybody bought into that, So this machine, you just get one prick of blood and you can do all the diagnosis that you need to do on a person. It was so bad, because it was all a lie, but she kept selling that. But the point I'm trying to make is that's not a Nigerian person. So there's fraud everywhere, so it's not a Nigerian thing. But the point is that if you do not do your checks and balances very well, you're going to have employees that are going to defraud you and they are going to steal your money. And this is something that happens like every time, even in my organization, we've had issues where, people have stolen money. There are just so many. There are so many stories. I don't want to tell a lot of bad stories, but so you need to make sure that there are a lot of checks and balances in place. I will talk about some of those things to make sure that you are blocking those checks and balances. Let me just note that down so I don't skip that. Yeah, so you need to make sure you have that. Another example of business risks is damage to physical assets. So sometimes you can have an asset that is so important, so expensive that your whole business is riding on it. And then if something happens to that physical asset, you get into serious trouble. I know that when I started business, some years back, we bought this very, very expensive hardware. It's called the HSM, hardware security module. I don't know if you guys know what that means. But it's supposed to, it's like an encryption machine. It helps you encrypt data. Because if I, for those of you that are programmers, right, I can write like an encryption algorithm to encrypt something. But I wrote that encryption algorithm, I can decrypt it. But when the machine encrypts it, it's almost impossible for, it's so much work for a human being to decrypt it. I don't want to say it's impossible because nothing is really impossible, but it's so difficult and so much work to decrypt. So, and we bought something like that was so expensive because we needed it for a particular business process. If something had happened to that machine at that time, we would not have been able to see that process, that business through at that time. Breach of private data too is also a major one. I'm happy that we have NISDA now that is taking things like this serious and issuing out fines. By the way, for full disclosure, I've been fined by NISDA before, where I had to pay a fine of like ₦1 million. But yeah, so those are things that can are major risk to businesses. And then of course safety hazard, which is straightforward. Especially if you are running like a plant or something that is physically tasking, like manufacturing or whatever, there's always risks around safety hazard. I hope pretty much everybody gets the example of or does the idea of what business risk or operational risk means. And then we will proceed to all right, so there are a lot of charts that are dropping. I can see 9 charts. Oh yes, okay, so Terranos, Elizabeth Holmes. All right, so we'll proceed to classifications of risk. So for classifications, there are 3 categories that we're going to be addressing. The first one is cost-based. The second one is effect-based. And then the last one is event-based. All right, so cost-based risks are risks that happens because pretty much we were careless. Let me just put it that way. We were careless, and so a typical example of this is that, I spoke earlier about making sure that you have proper checks and balances. Now, for a lot of you guys, and I'm assuming anyway, you people may already be running billion-dollar companies, but I'm assuming that you're not, and you have a startup that has between 0 to 30 employees. Is there anybody here that has a startup that has over 30 employees? Anyone?
No,
All right.
no.
All right.
Them.
So we are all below 30 employees. So you guys are actually in the sweet spot, because that is when managing an organization is really, really sweet. If you have 10 employees, 20 employees, what is going to happen is that you're going to know the name of every single person. You're going to know when they celebrate their birthdays. For those of them that have spouses, either married or boyfriend or girlfriend, you're going to know them. You're going to know their spouses. For those that have kids, you will know the name of their kids. And what usually happens is that there will be a lot of communication because you won't have a lot of hierarchy at this stage. So there'll be a lot of communication, a lot of back and forth. And I'm telling you, that is the best place to run an organization. If your company succeeds and continues to succeed, it is most likely that your staff strength will continue to grow. By the time you have, for example, right now, my own organization has 150 people full-time. We'll still have some contract staff, maybe another 20 or 30. But when you are running an organization that has 150 people, it is almost impossible to know everybody's name. If you are blessed and you have a good face memory, maybe when you see someone on the street, you know that guy works for me. But most of the time you won't know them because it's just a large number. Now imagine when you have an organization that has 1,000 people, 2,000 or 5,000, 10,000 people, it is impossible to know them. Now, the point sorry, where's that next coming from? Olakule, please, can you go on mute, please? Olakule, please, can you mute? Yeah, thank you very much. So what typically happens is when you have a 20-man team, 10-man team, 20-man team, even 30 people, you're able to run an organization on trust. Just like I said, this person, their spouse, this person, everything, pretty much everything about them. At that stage, you're able to run an organization on trust to say that, guy, you are responsible for moving this money, move the money from year to year, or do this from year to year, or you can pretty much run on trust, which is risky, by the way, very risky as well. So, but you're able to even run on trust. But as the organization grows larger, it is impossible that you will not have bad apples. Impossible. In fact, some of you, even small team, you have bad apples. There's always this example of for those of you that are Christians, example of Jesus Christ, that he had even just 12 disciples, only 12. He still got a bad one. That's not even, that's less than 30. Just 12 people, he got a bad one. So there is no way that you will not at least get one bad person. Some of them are even like super criminals. There's one guy that we arrested recently, super criminal. Like you'll be wondering how did we even hire this person? Olakule, please go ahead with your question.
You said something in the environment of it being next to impossible, taking on bad employees. In my research of startup culture, I've been privy to like a school of thought that says you hire the set of people that you want, people that have the kind of culture that you want to build in your organization, and those people will be responsible for hiring the next set. And I'm thinking if those guys can maintain that mentality, that might be mitigated. But what's your thought on this, sir?
Also, you're going to try. You're going to try, and I like the way you're thinking about it because that is the way it should be. I'm not going to dig too deep into hiring, so I just want to give like a high-level summary. So typically, right, first of all, when you start hiring, early days, second employee, third employee, fourth employee, the mistake that most people do is that they hire people that are similar to them, similar, because usually when you find similarities with somebody else, there's a natural tendency to like the person. So you hire those kind of people. So you hire people that you like. But ideally, what you should be doing is that, first of all, you should be hiring for your weakness. So you should be able to have some form of self-reflection to know this kind of work I like doing, this kind of work I don't like doing, or this kind of work stresses me. All those ones that stresses me, I don't like doing. There are other people that do well, that excel at it. So you hire for your weakness. But in terms of the hiring culture, it evolves over time. But a typical example for my own organization is that we have 3 things that we're looking for in people that we hire. And all our hiring managers, we tend to teach them these 3 things. So we even have an acronym for it. It's called EW. So we're looking for people that have EW. And this is ours. You people can have yours. EW is HUE. So the H is for hunger. And when I say we want to have people that are hungry, I'm sure you know that it is not the food hunger, but there's a different kind of hunger. People that have passion, people that have ambition, people that have drive, people that they want to chase something, they want to work, not people that they're just lazy and satisfied and they just want to chill. In a startup, we don't want those kind of people. You need people with fire, people with internal fire. A lot of people talk about you need to motivate people. But the point is that when you have the right guys, they're already motivated. Your job is to make sure that you don't demotivate them. So you need to make sure that you are getting people with natural motivation. So we call that hunger, and we have ways that we test for hunger, but that's a different class. Then we have what we call Ubuntu. For those that are technically inclined, you should be familiar with Ubuntu, the Linux software. But what Ubuntu means really is an acronym or a shortened version of a South African phrase that means that I can be the best version of myself. If I can only be the best version of myself if I help make you the best version of yourself. So what that speaks of is teamwork. So you want people that have that teamwork spirit. So we have questions that we use to test for teamwork. And then we have E, which is for emotional intelligence. So HUE is what we're looking for in people. So emotional intelligence, you guys should know what that means. It is self-awareness, situation awareness, someone that you understand yourself very well. And then you can go to a room and you can read the room and be able to know that I need to shout here, I need to mellow here, I need to keep quiet here. So those are the people that usually do very well in life. So we set out to look for these specific 3 things, which are really good things to look for. But it doesn't mean that you will not find these 3 things and you will not find it in someone that is a thief. It is just the sad, unfortunate truth. And especially in our environment, I've been trying not to criticize Nigeria, but we're in an environment where sometimes it feels like a honest person is the person without opportunities. I don't know if you guys understand the deepness of that phrase. What that means is that you can see, let me just use Olakunle because he asked the question. You can see Olakunle, this is just an example and say that, he's the most honest man Nigeria has to offer. I vouch for him, he's super honest. But then by the time you make Olakunle president of Nigeria, the account is not balanced again. So the point is that it feels like he's the honest man because he has not seen the opportunity. By the time you put someone where you seize the opportunity, where money is flying left, right, the honesty just shrinks. So because of all that temptation and all that, you need to, you are going to hire somebody that is going to mess you up. It's just the fact of life, It's just the fact of life. Last year, I had to fire about 7 people because they had a scam running in the organization where they were making some money and sharing money. And these are people that I even trusted, like I trusted well, and on and on and on and on. This year for fraud, I think we fired just 1 person, but he was the proper criminal because we even had to arrest him, But all those things are just going to happen. So there's nothing you can do, but it's going to happen. You're going to hire, you're going to make mistakes in your hiring. It's just normal. And of course, you need to fire, so you learn all that anyway. But just as I was saying, when your organization is small, it's easy to live on trust. It's easy to even make sure that, no money comes out except I press token or whatever. But the larger the organization gets, it becomes harder. You cannot run. Then are you about to ask a question, or do you want to? You need to mute, please. So it becomes harder to live on trust. You now need to make sure that you have proper checks and balances for everything. So what that means is that in a lot of times, we need to create policies to say, okay, what is our policy for moving out money, for making payments? Or to make payments, we need to make sure that 1 person has to initiate, 2 people have to approve. And of course, you make sure that these people are people that at least maybe there are different levels of trust that you maintain with them and all that, so that they won't just gang up and all the money will disappear. But that creates certain checks and balances. So it is not even that your finance person can bankrupt you. Someone else has to approve the money movement. So you need to create all those kind of processes, checks and balances you need to create even policies around procurement. So take for example, without a proper procurement policy, you realize that, oh, simple example, you want to buy, the company wants to buy t-shirts, branded t-shirts, and then you put someone in charge. What is going to typically happen is that the person in charge will look for his own person and say, I know one guy, I have one guy doing t-shirts, and can even arrange with that guy, and then you get t-shirts when you are spending more than you should spend, because people are going to want to make money on the side. So you spend more than what you should spend, and then you don't even get good quality, But when you are small, it's easy to oversee all those things and make sure that everything is right. But by the time as the organization continues to grow, you can't just leave it to trust. There needs to be a proper process. What is our process towards procurement? Example, you must get 3 codes. Just that is an example. So that kind of thing will be in your policy. You must get 3 codes. So you have to look at code A, code B, code C before a buying decision can be made. And then there has to be negotiation. So you list out all those things as a policy. So all those things and on and on and on. Because you can no longer run on trust. It's now against the business has to have structure. When you say structure, it's all this thing I'm talking about: structure, policies, processes. Now, processes is a big one. Even processes for me is even something that, as of today, we are still working on and improving on. Your business processes have to fully be documented. What that means is that everything you are doing in the business from step A to step B for the different roles, the different departments, it has to be documented. And this it helps with a lot of headache. So, by the way, a lot of things I'm saying are not things that you may have to do like right now. It's just things that I want to just have it in your like, I want it to be in your view or in your line of sight, so that as your organization gets larger, you have all this kind of experience. You already know that, oh, maybe it can even be 2 years down the line, something happens, you just remember that, I was in this training where, Olaoluwa mentioned something like this. This is what we need to do. So that's just what I'm just trying to do. Just, you have to have it in your line of sight that as we continue to get older, we have to have defined processes. When the organization is small, it's easy for people to just run on intuition, and that works. You have a fantastic guy that is doing some fantastic thing. It works. But as it gets larger, that fantastic thing being done, it needs to be documented as a process, so that when that guy leaves, someone else comes in, you reduce the catch-up time that you need to have for the new person to understand what was being done before. So you have all these processes documented and read, and it's easy for people to understand, and people review it. Now, the thing is, I even tell my people every time, is when we have all these processes formally written down and we are working by it, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't change, right? What does mean is that if something happens, I now realize that, by the way, if you have your business process written down, it creates even a lot of clarity. So you understand that, but why are we doing it like this? Why not just do it like this and like this instead? So you have that kind of clarity that creates efficiency. So it helps eliminate waste, create efficiency, all that stuff. And by the time I look at the policy, even me that I'm working and I'm supposed to abide by it, I'm just giving an example, and I see that no, this thing is not working. When it's not making sense when I'm working, I'm wasting time. I need to be doing it a different way. All you just need to do is there has to be a chain of editing the business process document. So you can write an email or whatever, or an internal memo to say the business process document should be changed to this, so that things can be done this way, and that can be done. And then the business process document is updated. The important thing is that whatever we are doing to say this is my job, it needs to be documented, so that there's continuity. It helps to analyze better, eliminate waste and all that. So these are part of the things that you need to have. Now, when you have an organization where this is not happening, and things go bad, as a CEO, the buck stops on your table. The buck stops on your table in your organization. You can't say that, it's not my fault, though. It's because that person stole money. Oh, it's your fault. So that is what you cost-based risks, because you did not do what you're supposed to do. So a typical example would be, I'm trying not to use, but let me just use it anyway, a real life story. Something like this happened to, are you guys familiar with Wakana?
I am.
Okay. So something like this happened to Wakana, I don't know now, maybe 3 years ago, when the CEO had to step down. Now, the CEO did not do nothing. He did not do anything wrong. He's a fantastic guy. I've met him before. He used to play in the NBA. Very tall guy, basketballer, experienced, and he's a great guy. But then people were stealing money. Waka now, people were making money. People were cashing out. You had people doing transactions at the airport, selling tickets. Money was not getting to Waka now. Like, there was so many loopholes, so many gaps that people were making money. When all these things when the board realized that, the fact is that it happened on your watch. So what I'm trying to say is that as a CEO, the buck stops on your table. You can't blame anybody. You can't point finger and say, oh, it's not me or it's someone that stole money. There's nothing like that. You did not do a good job. That is why all that happened under your watch. So all those are operational risks that you say they are cost-based because you did not do what you were supposed to do. So examples are people-oriented causes like negligence, insufficient training, incompetence, integrity, and then a big one again is key man risk. Key man risk. So key man risk is the concept that, by the way, all these things is fine for you guys right now because I know that there's a process to it. But the reality of it, or sometimes the engineers call it boss factor. And when you hear boss factor, you think it's BOSS. But it's funny because it's BUS. And what it just means is that imagine that your top engineer or one guy in your organization, the top guy that runs everything. Imagine that he's coming to work, God forbid, and the boss jams him on the road and he's unable to come to work or do any work. What happens to your organization? Is that the end? How long would it take you to recover? That is what is called a human risk. So it is an evil that needs to be eliminated. For small startups, when you are still struggling, it's good. So you are always going to have it. But as you get, even before you get larger, you need to start planning against human risks. And the way to plan, from my own experience, is that first of all, is identifying. So you have to identify that this person is a key man. And then, so the key man, what do I need to do to make sure that we don't have a key man risk? So you start, okay, do I hire one more person so that that guy can get some knowledge of this guy? Do I get this guy to start doing trainings every week so that other people understand what he's doing? So you need to identify key man risks and you need to work against it because this is one that kills people. There's the fact that the guy can say tomorrow, oh, I found a better offer. Google wants to hire me. I'm going, the salary is times 10 what you're paying me. You can't compete. You need to let him go. In fact, you let him go and congratulate him. But then what happens to your business? So you need to make sure that, so that's even a different type. But still, the risk is still that either his boss that jammed the guy or he needs to go somewhere else. Or right now, say everybody's Japan. What's the guy has a Japan plan that does not involve you? It's going to ruin you. So you need to make sure that you are identifying key man risks and you are eliminating. Then process, I already spoke about that, where you don't have a proper structured process. Yeah, so I already spoke about process. And then there is technology-oriented courses. So your application or the way you own whatever is written, the UI experience is poor, user experience is poor, it's not well written. These are gaps that can put you in trouble, but they are all gaps that you are guilty of. You being the CEO or whoever the CEO is guilty of, even if not directly, but that you did not make sure that things were done properly. You did not make sure that your user experience was good enough that everybody understands how easy to use your app. You did not set up the right processes and make it very understandable and eliminate key man risks and all that. So these are what is called cost-based operational risk, meaning that you, one way or the other, were responsible for the risks that you guys had to go through. Okay, and then the other example is we're talking about classifications or categories. The other classification is effect-based operational risk. All right, so these are the ones that, it is not your fault now. It is not your fault. It is just that this stuff happens, So these are risks of financial losses and negative social performance related to non-compliance with internal and external regulations and laws. All right, so legal liabilities as an example. Let me look for an example here. Yeah, but pretty much legal liability is someone suing someone, and also maybe you did not do something you're supposed to do a certain way, you did it a different way, and then someone is suing you. That's a legal liability that can run you out of business, because if the damage is much, and they say, oh yeah, you have to pay 100 million naira in damages. Meanwhile, your company service is worth 10 million naira or whatever. So that's a major one. So legal liabilities, you need to make sure that you're good against that, and you're being very careful. You're not breaking laws. You're not trying to get yourself in trouble. So you need to watch out for that. There is also regulatory or tax issues. So regulatory compliance, have not really suffered from that. Our major regulator is the central bank, and they are very strict, but they're very nice as well. So there's a balance there. And there are people from ITWAS, that's the family of ITWAS. So the central bank is pretty decent, but you need to make sure that you're not breaking laws. You're not doing anything that would make them come down on you. So let me give an example. Right now, if I was doing crypto, like, I'm looking for trouble, pretty much, because regulators are going to come down heavy. They don't like it at all. So they're going to come down on me heavy. Now, if you are not regulated by the central bank, of course you can do your crypto. But the fact that you are in a regulated environment, you shouldn't do that. Tax is also scary as well. Tax is scary. And the sad thing is that I don't think that a lot of you at this stage right now is currently paying taxes as much. Let me just hold the room. If you are paying taxes, can you just simplify it? Just like raise up your hand or something. If you are currently paying taxes. All right, so that is something that you need to be, okay, just one person. Iwuchukwu Jude. Jude, which one of them are you paying? VAT, CIT, or withholding? Like, which of the taxes are you paying? Or is it just payee, monthly payee?
Hello, personal tax.
All right. So just your personal tax, which goes to Lagos State. So that can be you can put that on that page. All right, thanks, and well done. But the thing is, as the organization continues to grow, you need to make sure that you're doing your taxes, because those tax guys, they do not forgive. They do not forgive. Even when they forgive, they do not forget. You can't say that, oh, I am now born again, I want to start paying my tax from tomorrow. They will not agree. All the ones that you were owing, you're not owing, they will go way back and try to dig it out. So those are things that can get you in trouble. And tax, especially, I can talk from experience. I've suffered in the hands of those tax people. Of course, lots of damage to assets. So those are things that pretty much for effect-based operational risks are things that are out of your control. The market is just that way. Someone sued you, the regulatory body got in trouble with regulation, you have tax issues, and so on. And then the third classification that we have is event-based risk, which so these are risks that happen based on occurrence of external events, typically, out of your control as well. So internal, external fraud that is out of your control. So there can be fraud that you should have blocked. There is one that can happen out of your control as well. Clients, products, business practices. So let's say, for instance, you are a business with a one-man client. Jude, you can put down your hand. You're a business with a one-man client, and that client runs out of business. Business disruption, natural disaster, one hurricane happens, something happens, or maybe COVID or something just comes and knocks you out. So those are all type of risks that they can hit you and do damage. Any questions so far on the risk? On everything we've talked about? All right, so next I go into how you're able to assess your risk. I have a chart that I'm going to share. Yeah, Ola, please go ahead.
Would I be jumping the gun if I asked about how some of those risks that seem as if you have no control over can be mitigated? Like you mentioned about the hurricane or COVID. Is it like you plan ahead for such unknown eventualities or something?
Yes, correct. You cannot have, the reality is that it is impossible to plan everything ahead, because there are going to be things, for example, nobody knew that COVID was going to come. Like nobody could have guessed that, right? But interestingly now, it has happened. So the next time it's going to happen again, there's already a plan against it. So take, for example, it started 2020, even though it's COVID-19. We didn't feel the effect in 2020, but there was still COVID in 2021. But COVID 2021 did not have as much impact as COVID 2020. The reason because as at 2020, we did not understand what we were facing. It was new. There was no way to have planned ahead for that. But as at 2021, you already know what you're doing. You already know what you're doing fully. So you've already experienced COVID. You can't say, no, it caught me by surprise. There's nothing like that anymore, because you don't have that excuse anymore. So you can't say that you're not aware. So part of what you need to do really is identify the risk. So I'm still going to talk a bit more on mitigation and things like that. So it's still further ahead, but just in case, I'll also note it down and make sure that I don't forget mitigation. All right, so risk assessment. So now we are planning. So we finished our plan, and then we're going to say, all right, how do we assess this risk? So we have this, what I have in front of you guys is called a risk assessment matrix, which on the y-axis shows the likelihood, on the x-axis shows the significance. So for likelihood, we have really, unlikely, possibly, likely, certain. On significance, we have insignificant, minor, significant, major, catastrophic. And for every risk that you identify, CBN may clamp down on us. You need to be able to rate to the best of your ability. Is it between really and certain? Where does it fall? For significance, if it does happen that CBN clamps down on us, where does it fall? Insignificant, minor, significant, major, catastrophic. So you need to put it somewhere there, And by the time you identify all your risks, all the ones you can identify, because the truth is that you can't identify everything. Do you guys know what they say about planning? I don't know if you guys have ever heard it before, but that the process of planning is a lot more important than the plan itself. Has anybody heard that before? All right, so I'm sharing that right now, because what that just talks about is that the fact that you've tried to think about 20 things that can happen, but then when you get to the fight proper and the 21st thing happens, the 20 you prepared for did not happen, it's the 21st thing that happened, you would do a lot better than the person that did not even plan for the 20. Because you would have gone through different scenarios, you would have thought this, thought about this, thought about that. Now, when you enter the battle zone itself, it's possible that what you are planning for did not happen. But then because of that experience of that planning, you've experienced the planning, you're able to apply that experience to the new danger that happens, and then you're able to respond appropriately. So that's just what that means. So for every risk you identify, you try and put them somewhere here on this matrix. And if you put it on low, then you're pretty much fine. If it's moderate, somewhere in the middle, then there's high, there's extreme. The things that are going to run you out of business are the ones that are extreme. So if the likelihood is very high and the significance is very high, that should happen, then you need like a miracle, for that not to happen. So you know that these things, so this even says that you focus on the ones that are high, you focus on the ones that are extreme. Those are the things that can kill you. You know, and this is just a very, very good way to identify risk. And how to know where to focus your energy on. You know, so if you plot this, if you identify 4 or 5 risks, so take for example, at the beginning of this class, Bernard spoke about SWOT analysis. So you do your SWOT analysis, you've identified 4 or 5 things that are like major risks, and you put them on this chart. If you have 3 of them in low, moderate, and then maybe 2 in high extreme, the ones you should focus on are the ones in high extreme, because those are the ones that can ruin you. All right, and then the next, so from this now we're going into, you know, the operational risk management stages. So risk management proper, and I think this speaks a bit more on, you know, the question asked by Olakunle. So the first step for risk management is identification. Identification. How do you identify your risk? Because, so they said that they're saying, oh my God, I have so many things. They're saying that once a madman knows that he's mad, he's no longer mad, something like that. You know, so if the madman can tell that I'm a madman, then his problem is almost solved. You know, if there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with you, maybe an attitude problem. If you have an attitude problem and you are aware that you have an attitude problem, you're almost out of it. You know, so there's a lot that happens with self-awareness. So because by the time you're aware that, I have a problem, you can then start working towards, how do I solve this problem? Maybe I shouldn't talk about certain things. Maybe I shouldn't, you can now solve it. When you have that attitude problem and you're not aware you have it, and people are even telling you have it, I say, no, nothing like that, then the problem is huge, you know. So identification is the most important thing. You need to be able to identify the risk. And then there's, in this paragraph here, they talk about an easy way to be able to identify your risks is to start from, you know, the organizational objectives, which is what are we trying to achieve? So if you start from there, what are we trying to achieve? You can then work back to what are the things that may prevent us from achieving it. That then becomes, you know, our risk. So that's a very easy way to identify it. You can also do a SWOT analysis, identify your threats, whatever works for you. But the key thing is identifying that these are the things that can mess me up or not make me succeed or roll me out of the business, depending on the impact. So after you've identified them, you need to be able to assess them. You know, so this speaks a little about the metrics that we just spoke about, being able to rate based on what is the likelihood that this will happen and what is the impact. You know, if the likelihood is not high, the impact as well is not significant. You don't need to kill yourself over it. Things, shit happens. You know, but if it falls into the green, the red part of that matrix, you be alarmed and you need to move into mitigation. All right, so when we get to mitigation, it talks about, from here, it's saying that there are 4 ways to mitigate when you identify the risk. You know, so there is transfer. You can transfer the risk, you can avoid it, you can accept it, you can control it. You may not, I doubt you can't do all 4 at once. Maybe in some cases you can do 2 of them at once, but these are the 4 different ways that you can mitigate against the risks that you've identified. And then from there, you now go into control, implementation, and monitoring, which is really just about, you know, we are now into it, you know. So how do you monitor and track pretty much to make sure that you're on top of it. So I think we're going to go a bit into, one second. All right, so I want us to go a bit into now. So I'm going to go back. I don't have any slide on that, but I'm just going to talk about risk mitigation generally. So I said 4 ways. Transfer. Does anybody have an idea of how you can transfer risk? there's one major global example of how you can transfer risk. Anyone?
Insurance.
Sorry, what did you say?
Insurance.
Who said that? Who said insurance?
Hello.
Oh, okay. All right, so that is a beautiful one. Insurance. Yeah, you can transfer the risk with insurance. In fact, that's what I was looking for. There's no other answer. You can transfer with insurance and say, I'm sure you guys know how insurance works now. You pay somebody to make sure that in case shit happens, you have my back. But hopefully the shit does not happen. But in case it happens, I've paid someone to look after it. So Olakunle, go ahead.
Is there an insurance policy for fraud?
Yes, there is. But even the insurance policy for fraud would not be, it would not be just general fraud insurance, So it will be specific to this type of fraud, that type of fraud, because the insurance guys are not just going to expose themselves to everything, So, but yes, there is. So, for example, there is something fidelity assurance, something fidelity something that speaks about employee fraud. So you can insure with. There are a lot of insurance products, So there's insurance to insure yourself against errors made by your employees. To insure the company against errors made by employees. There's insurance against employee fraud. So if your employee defrauds you, there's an insurance against that. There are a lot of fraud insurance packages, but the point I'm just trying to make is you're not going to get an insurance package that just covers fraud broadly. They need to narrow it down, and then be specific about what they're going to insure you for. So yes, you can transfer the risks of fraud to insurance. Also, even the risks of equipment. So I just spent so much money buying this equipment that I need. What if the equipment gets damaged? That's the high risk. You can insure the equipment. You can, so transferring the risk is a major factor that can happen. So that is one. The second one is avoiding the risks. So you know that there's a big risk here. Do we have to do it? Because if we do it, the central bank can shut us down. This can happen. And you put it on your matrix. It looks like there's a high likelihood that it will happen. So the question you need to ask yourself is, do I really need to do it? Can I just avoid it completely and just do without it? So the important thing is you've identified it. You know that if I remove X, Y can happen. Therefore, let me run away from the X, because of the Y I'm looking at. So take, for example, I won't touch, as the fintech regulated by the central bank, I won't touch crypto. That's avoidance. And it was so interesting because prior to then, we had a crypto strategy. We had a crypto strategy. And then the CBN comes and writes us a letter and says, we must not touch crypto. But then they don't stop there. And this has never happened before. They told us to write them back. That has never happened before, that we are not touching crypto. I don't know if you understand. Usually, when CBN wants to tell us something, they just send us a letter and we've gotten the message. We just acknowledge. They don't want acknowledgements. They want you to write them back that you are not touching it. So that if they bring down, if they bring out the rule for you, you cannot say that, you cannot claim ignorance. So you avoid, you identify, you avoid. Or you can identify and accept and say that, nothing they do me, or for whatever reason, whatever insurance that you have, or the godfather that you have, you can just accept the risks. And know that if I do this, the orange is worth more than, the juice is worth more than the squeeze. So that is about, there are some oranges that you spend so much time squeezing, and the liquid coming out is very small. So you've put in a lot of energy, you've gotten small juice. It's not what it's, right? But there's some juice that once you squeeze, there's plenty juice from the orange. So you have to decide if the juice is what the squeeze or not. And then the last one is, just control, being able to control the risk. Either you realize that, so there's a risk that, I don't know, let me say Walmart is coming to Nigeria. And by the time Walmart comes into the market, your business is going to shut down. So you need to control that risk, either by going to Sanwo-Olu and making sure that one man does not come into the country, or you to go and raise plenty capital so that you have chests, you to have a war chest or whatever, but just taking ownership and trying to control what is in front of you. So for this now, for things like control, there is no one should fits all. Is a different situation that you have. Take, for example, this regulatory. Can I go and get a license from the central bank? Can I get a no objection from the central bank? Can I get whatever it is that you can use to control the risks? You will focus on that and try to open your mind and just try and control it. And then from there, we go into benefits. All right, so on this now, there are about 5 benefits, but it's just listed 5. There are way more than 5 benefits. So it helps informing, it informs business risk taking, so it makes sense from scratch that you identify all the risks. In fact, if you've ever done a business plan before, it's always there. One of the things they want you to write in your business plan is what are the risks? What are the risks? Because the risks are, what are the chances that this is going to fail? What are the chances that this is not going to work? So as a business, you're able to make better decisions when you understand the risk. Do I go left or right? The question always is, what are the risks? Sometimes I do this like a lot. I have 2 options in front of me. Either we do this or we do this. I just want a table. I want to know what are the pros, what are the cons of going left or right. So that way, when you're making your decision, and by the way, as entrepreneurs, as CEOs, you have to make a lot of decisions. When you're making your decision, you're making it based on all the information that you've gotten, all the information that you have. If you don't have enough information or sufficient information, there's the chance that you can make the wrong call. But even when you're making a call, especially when it's one that is being contended, that where people are arguing about, you need to be able to say, this is why I'm making this call, because of all this information that I have. Because if you don't do X, Y and Z is going to happen. So we have to do X. So it helps with your your risk taking as a business. For investor confidence, like I said, if you do a business plan, investors want to see risks and mitigation. In fact, that's the name of the category, risks and mitigation. So you will tell them these are the risks that I see. Risk number 1, regulatory landscape. The mitigation is that we'll get a CBN license. Risk 2, capitalized competition. The mitigation is that blah, 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 blah. Like, you would have, but, so it helps the investors understand the risk of what they are going into. So they see the risks, they see how you plan to manage the risks, and then they can say, okay, that works or that doesn't work. And of course, strengthen relationship with customer and stakeholders. When you've been able to identify the risk, and you can make better informed decisions to suit the customer. Enhances performance reporting, so I think all these things are straightforward. Like if you can identify the risk, you can give better reports, to say we are going this way because of this risk, and we've done that. And then the last one I have here is facilitate sustainable financial forecasting, which is just about planning. So if I can identify the risks, if I know what is ahead, I'm able to sit down here today and make better plans because of the risk ahead of me. Pretty much. So those are the benefits of risk identification, risk management. Any questions? All right, so I have a conclusion right here. All right, so it states that many of the factors that create operational risks also create various other types of risks. However, the statistical correlations show that operational risk is the nucleus of all business risk and can therefore serve as a base for managing risks across an entire organization. All right, so what this just says is that apart from operational risks, there are other risks that a business can face. But operational risk is the most important. Once that is covered, is the nucleus. Every other risk is a subset pretty much of operational risks or the business risk per se. So that is that, and that is why, you know, for me, I'm happy that you guys are having this session because you get to learn a lot, you know, and maybe some of these things do not apply right away, but there are things that, as long as you are focused on building an organization and you want to actually build a good organization, there are things that you need to have, you know, in your line of sight, so that at the right time, you can just start that, make sure it happens, and it will be good. All right, so questions, please. Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Olaoluwa. Thanks for that session. And I think one of the participants has a question, and I will. Olakunle. Hello, Olakunle. Hello. Since you can't hear me. So I think let me just read out his question. He has a question. Already sent the question to me before we started the meeting. So I don't know, can you hear me, please?
Yes, Olaoluwa, please go ahead.
Okay, his question says that you currently have a successful business. In your own opinion, how much of percentage of that can you accredit your executive and your non-executive board members? That's question. Maybe you just take them one after the other. There's a second question also. Or should I read through the question again, sir?
I want that question again. Thank you very much.
He said, you currently have a successful business. In your own opinion, how much of a percentage of that can you accredit your executive and non-executive board members? That's the first question. But would you like to answer the first question before I ask the second question too?
Yes, I'm happy to. All right, so my understanding of the question is that it's talking about shareholding, equity ownership.
Olakunle, can you? Sorry. Hello, Olakunle.
So, hello, yeah. I lost connection for a bit.
Okay,
when you
is that
the question?
Okay, he's answering your question. The question you sent to me.
All right. So Olakunle,
Okay.
I was asking.
Yes.
That.
Yes.
What you are talking about is share ownership, right? Equity.
No. We did something about corporate governance last week, and I've been thinking about the direction, because what I took away from that session was that corporate governance sort of helps you put checks and balances in place to ensure that your organization is healthy and you are charting the proper path. More like you have guidance of sort. You go to war and you have counsel. So your board is like your counsel for making the right decisions or vetting your decisions. So the question was more in the direction of, okay, that's what somebody is saying. In your own experience regarding the success of your organization, what was the board that useful to you? What was the percentage? And if you care to share, like itemizing specifics as to how they've been useful.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much. Of course, the board is always useful because, number one, the easiest part of it is that it creates accountability. You know, you don't want to be a CEO that is not accountable to anyone. You know, so you need to have that accountability. So that is one. But aside from that as well, you know, you spoke about corporate governance. If you don't have a board, you are not yet serious. That's the way the business world is, right? Because any decision you want to make, they expect that we should be able to get approval from the board. So typical example, if you are doing maybe some investment, they want to do a due diligence. They want to see board minutes. It's not that they really want to read your minutes word by word for word, but they want to know that the board is meeting and discussing matters of this business. You want to do, even if you are being regulated by the central bank, when the central bank is doing audits, they want to see your board minutes. Because all this thing, what it means is that there's a board here, there's corporate governance, there's a board here that is looking into the affairs of this company and giving advice and direction. In the US, it's quite popular that you have companies with CEO chairman. So some companies have CEO chairman. Now, this is frowned upon in other parts of the world, even in Nigeria and maybe in Europe, because they always would rather separate the role of CEO and chairman. And the difference between both is that the CEO should be on the board, right? And then you have board members. Now that board members, the top dog in the board that maybe has a casting vote or a final vote or whatever, should be the board chairman. Now, if the CEO is the same person as the board chairman, then he just has other people on the board that pretty much they become more like the advisors because they report to him. He still has the final say on the board. You know, so I know that we have it a lot in the US, but it's not that popular in other parts of the world. I know, for example, when I don't know if you guys can remember when Elon Musk first got into trouble with the SEC, you know, because they wanted to charge him for insider trading because he made some comments that made his stock price go up. You know, part of the conditions that was given to him after, as part of his punishment, was that he had to step down from being the board chairman of Tesla. You know, so he's already CEO, meaning that the SEC, even in the US, even though that practice is widely done and widely accepted in the US, the SEC too knew that it did not set the right tone for the CEO to be the board chair, because it means that really you don't really have anybody you're reporting to. So you are, as a CEO, you're part of the board, right? But then you're reporting to the whole board. The chairman has the final say when it comes to board matters, but then you are the chairman again. You know, so it just means that the board people are just people that you just want to give updates. So you just want to give them updates, and you know, you have all the final say to make your decision. So the SEC, which is, you know, we have SEC in Nigeria too, forced Elon Musk to resign from being the chairman of Tesla. But of course, he's still CEO. He's still CEO, he's still a board member, but they did not want him to hold the chairman position because that way he has nobody that is not accountable to anybody. You know, so what this just means is that the role of the board is also very, very important. I remember also when Diamond Bank, when CBN had issues with Diamond Bank, before, you know, they're now Access Bank, but before then, they had issues with CBN. And I remember that part of the thing that CBN raised was poor governance, because they said that Diamond Bank was building this new headquarters that was taking a lot of capital, and it did not appear once in the board meeting, in the board minutes. You know, so at every board meeting, there are minutes of meetings of the meeting. And you know that how can an organization be spending so much money on a capital project and it does not appear once in your board minutes? So it means that people are just going there and packaging what you want them to discuss, not what is really happening in the organization. You know, so they attributed that to poor governance as well, which means that ideally certain things like that should be discussion topics at board level, that, oh, we're spending 1 billion a year, or the board is aware, you know, and all that, and the board can advise, you know, so on and on and on. But that is the importance of the board. Now, what I want to say is this: for the business to get to good, I just want to use this stolen example. For the business to get to good, you don't really need a board, right? Your market product fit gets you to good. But for the business to move from good to great, which is the name of your book, you need to have corporate governance. For your business to last for a lifetime, you need to have corporate governance. You need to have structure. You know, so and I'm just trying to answer Lakule's question, because it was asking about what percentage. To have a successful business, you don't need to have a board. You can just do your thing, one-man business, run it, make money, hire people, you're good. But if that business is going to last the test of time, if that business is going to have a structure that can run outside of you, a board has to be set up. And the board usually is the highest body in an organization. So you have a board as the highest body. The board is headed by a board chairman. And then the most important person in that board is usually not the chairman, it's actually the CEO, except you have a figurehead CEO, because I don't want to comment into that, but you know, you now have the CEO, which in a lot of our cases is CEO founder, you know, but then you report to a board, you know, and then the board has a chairman. The board chairman, all the board chairman does is maybe sometimes depending on your board structure, because everybody too is unique. The chairman can have casting votes. What that means is that there's a tie. 4 people think we should go this way. 4 other people think that we should go the other way. The chairman's votes will count as 2, or certain things like that. When it comes to decision making, the chairman is the board. But aside from that, the CEO runs the company day to day. That's why it's called Chief Executive Officer. You are the guy executing, you are the guy running the organization, and then you're accountable to a board. I hope I was able to explain that, Olakunle. Is that satisfactory?
It remains more to hit the spot, sir.
Okay. Can you just explain further what you want
to do? I've gotten that. And I'm like on 70%. But I'm looking at like your own example of e-settlement. Can you like state maybe like 1 or 2 areas where board has been really useful in the growth and survival of your organization from good to great?
Okay, so first of all, I'm not great yet, Olakunle. We are not great yet. We are still somewhere after good, but we've not yet great. So it's a journey, right? But all right. So just before I get there as well, I also want to talk, because I just want to share this. I may not have another opportunity to talk about who are your typical board members for a solid organization. So you're going to have a board, just like I said, and usually how you pick your board members, there are 2 ways really. One method is that you on your own can go and look for board members. It's people that that have experience, I've done this before, and say, sir, please, I want you to come and sit on my board. You can't do that if you're trying to compose your board. But the most popular way in our industry, which is in this tech industry, is that investor sits on your board. And they do this because the time they are giving you money, writing you a check, is part of the clauses, because they want you to be accountable to them, right? So it's part of the clauses in their term sheets that I'm going to invest this much in your business, but I'm going to get a board seat. So at that point, it's left for you to say, I will take the money, but there's no board seats, depending on how much they are giving. If the money they are giving is small, you can tell them there's no board seats. They should go and chop their money. But if they are giving you a substantial amount of money and you need that money, you cannot say no. You will take the money and give them the board seat. So they automatically become a board member. But then if your company is really corporate, you can also have policies that say that anybody that has shares of this and above automatically gets the board seat. And that is that's your shareholders agreement. So you can have that. So automatically, what it means is that if an investor comes in and buys a substantial amount of shares, automatically gets a board seat because of the number of equity he owns. But all that is dependent on your individual companies. Now, something else that I forgot to mention is that there are board members and then there are shareholders. Now, everybody that has invested in your business or the partner or has any form of equity is actually a shareholder. So you can be a shareholder and not be a board member. So there's a difference there. So the board are the guys that you do board meetings with. The shareholders in Nigerian law, you're supposed to do 1 meeting with shareholders annually, which is called the AGM, annual general meeting. So every company does it. You're supposed to do it once a year. Now, for public companies, it is compulsory. Like you can't even escape it. And I'm sure you have seen all those AGM invites, AGM, Zenith Bank is doing AGM, this bank, that company is doing AGM. Public companies, you have to do it. But if your company is private, if you don't do your AGM, it's your company, nobody cares. But AGM should be once a year. Then you can have your board meeting based on your own. For our own side, we have board meetings 3 times a year. So first quarter board meeting, second quarter board meeting, third quarter board meeting, and then the 4th board meeting, we convert it to an AGM. So people that are not on our board but have any form of equity in these settlements, we get to bring all of them together and do AGM once a year. And then occasionally you have extraordinary meetings, extraordinary board meetings, which is just that. So for example, the board meeting I spoke about once a quarter, it is we have it in our calendar. But then something can just come out tomorrow. Someone wants to buy the company and it needs us to make a decision. Board has to meet. So you quickly call a board meeting for tomorrow or for next week. Those ones are called extraordinary meetings, and they can happen as often as required. Now, in terms of how the board has added value, I would say number one, you get sufficient mentorship. Oh, by the way, before I get there, so people that are joining your board, you have, Olakuni mentioned executive directors. Executive directors are directors. Okay, so this way, everybody that is on your board is a director. So board members are directors in your company. Your chairman too is a director in your company. It was just that in the board, he was elected as a chairman, but they're all directors in your company. The directors that are working for you full-time, collecting salary, like they are your staff, but they're also directors on the board. Those ones are called executive directors. The directors that are on your board, but are not your employees, meaning that they do not work in your organization, they probably work somewhere else or have their own company, but they sit on your board. Those ones are called non-executive directors. Of course, there's going to be a board chairman, and I already spoke about chairman. So chairman is, it depends. Your chairman, there's no law that says this is how chairman should be elected. Every company will have how they elect their chairman from the board. Then there's another classification of director, which is independent director. Now, every correct organization must have this. In fact, some organizations have more than one, depending on your board structure, but you must have at least one independent director. Now, what you find is that most organizations, their board members are shareholders. Nobody said it should be that way, but that's how it usually is. Because what it means is that I've put money here, I have equity here, so I'm sitting on the board. So you find that most board members are shareholders. However, you need to have a board member that is not a shareholder. So this board member is called independent director. It does not own any equity in the business, but it sits on the board. And it's important for compliance sake. CBN enforces all companies they regulate must have an independent director. So it's global standard. If you have a good board, there have to be at least one, you can more than one, but at least one independent director. And what this does for you is that if the decision is to be made and everybody's trying to, because people are always focused on their own shares, there should be an independent director that does not have equity, but can give a different voice and say, I think this is what we should do. So they always want to have independent directors. Now, that said, what has board done? Number one is, usually on your board, you should get people with experience and caliber. So there's a lot of mentorship that happens at the board level, in terms of, this is what we're doing. This is the problem we are facing. This is the calamity that is upon us. Your board should have experience. The more diverse, the better, to be able to say, I've been through this before. This is how you should go about it. Or, I've seen this before. This is what you should do about it. So the board gives you that vast knowledge of experience that you can tap into because they are sitting on your board. So mentorship for me will be the thing that I have access to the most. Mentorship from so many people. So as long as they're sitting on your board, you go and you get advice, even at board meetings, all that, even the one-on-ones, because having these guys on your board gives you access to them. So you go, you get advice, you get that there. So I would say the thing I get the most from board members is mentorship. So you can't put a naira value on that mentorship, especially because for me, I mentioned that my board members were people that could contribute positively to the business. I have businesses today that the transactions I'm doing, it was a board member that got it for me. Like I did not even go and meet him. The guy just called me and said, hey, are you interested in this? I said, yes. Now I said, okay, no problem. So I've made money off businesses that were brought to me by board members before, so I would say that on my journey from good to great, the board has played a major role, but the board role can never be as mighty as the role you as entrepreneurs are supposed to play. Because don't forget, I already said that you are the ones that are going to carry the business to good. If there's nothing, if the business is dying, or if the business is not well run, or the business is not functional, there's nothing for the board to do, apart from just keep guiding you and say, do you have enough runway? Do you have enough capital? Okay, just push. You should be able to make money in month 2 or month 3. So you need to first do most of the work, but then the board is that body that can help package it better and take it where it needs to get to. All right, Olakunle, I hope that's good.
Olakunle,
Yes, I'm good.
Hello,
I'm good. Thank you, sir. Yes, I'm good.
hello.
Yes, Lalu, we can hear you.
Seems Olakunle cannot.
No, we heard Olakunle now.
Okay, Olakunle, has that answered your second question?
Answered my first. The second question is how did he go about getting them to come on board?
Member. Yeah.
Yeah. Searching first of all, seeking them out, then how do you get them to come on board?
All right, so getting board members. All right, so quick question, Olakunle, have you received any external funding?
No.
You need external funding.
I think so. I think I need mentoring. I'm more partial towards the bootstrapping, but I need mentoring in direction of should I bootstrap or I should seek funding.
All right, so what I would advise is that right now, the stage you are in, there's another term they call advisory board. Get an advisory board for now. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you are going to fundraise, most likely people that are giving you fund may want a board seat. And you don't want to have already set up your board, right? And and all the people there, nobody has given you money. They're not investors, they're not shareholders. And then the guy that is giving you money now coming in and meeting a board and all that. So what I would say is that just set up an advisory board. They will do almost the same thing as a board, but without the stress of regulation, like the regulatory oversight. So what that would entail is that you need to, and then later when you formulate your board, which is mostly investor-led, the ones that you like from your advisory board that are making sense, you can bring them in as independent directors that they don't have equity. So that would be my advice to form your board. So start with an advisory board. Now for the advisory board, how do you identify them? You need to identify them. It is up to you. You need to look for people that have experience, people that have similar experiences to what you've gone through, and you need it. The more robust, the better. Because you can have someone that is very successful and say, I want that guy on my board. I want him to mentor me. But then that guy has worked in Mobil or Shell or Chevron all his life, right? So when you are seeking advice for him and you say, also I've not been able to pay salary, the guy cannot relate. Because even though he's successful, he cannot relate to your circumstance. So you need to make sure that you have someone like that he has a lot of corporate knowledge and he can guide you and tell you, this is how the structure should be, this is how that should be. But then at the same time, you also have a different kind of board member that has been through similar struggles to you. So when you say, I can't pay salary, you say, I've been there before. This is how you should get through it. So the more robust, the better. But focus on building an advisory board, first of all. And how to build it is identify the mentors that you want. You can, depending on your relationship with them, inform them either formally. It has to be both, actually. Informally and formally. Informally being that you go and try to see them and say, this is what I want. Formally is that you give them a letter and say, and then there's no system that, advisory board must be what they cut or whatever. They don't need to. It can even just be one-on-one. But the important thing that you need to learn, and this is about mentorship generally, when you have a mentor, do not go and be asking him for money. Instead, want to go and visit him, buy a book, give it to him, seek advice, move on. December comes, buy amper, big amper, give it to him, or bag of rice, whatever. Seek advice, move on. Like, don't be going to seek advice, because that is how that relationship, mentorship advice grows. The day you are going to collect money is coming in future. If you need this money, and you won't need to work hard for it. But the point is, if you start very early, you say, I want a mentor, and then the guy is your mentor. You say, join my board, the guy joins your advisory board, and then tomorrow you are going to him and say, please, I'm in trouble, I need 5 million. The guy will start avoiding you. Even if he gives you that 5 million, the next time you come and say, I want to see you say, I'm not around. Because you are in need, you're always in need. So you don't want that. You need that kind of relationship where you feel like you're adding value, you know, and then the guy is going to be there for you. So that's just a piece of advice from me.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, cool.
Okay, do we have any other question? Okay, please, in the absence of that, thank you very much, Mr. Olalua. Thank you very much for that insights on operational risk. And please, if you haven't taken the polls, please, we still have some participants that are here to take the polls. Kindly take that. So, and next week we'll be moving to fraud mitigation.
Yes, yes, I do have a question.
Bernard, you're very lucky. I was just about to like leave.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I go ahead, please?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I want to understand. Starting out, sometimes you want to talk to an investor and he's asking you questions like, "What's your cap table?" All right, and I want to understand when he's or she, any VC is asking you of your cap table. Does it necessarily mean investment you've received so far, or does he or she actually means your equity splits that you have within you and your co-founders and your current employee? Thank you, sir.
All right. So if that question can be asked in two ways. If it's verbal, it's going to be like, what's your cap table like? If it's an email or whatever, or written, it's going to be like, send me your cap table. Now the responses are similar, because what it really means is, if I say what your cap table like, what I want you to tell me is your second response, equity split. So you're going to be like, oh, my cap table has 60% founders and 40% investors. That is the perfect response, you know. Or you can say, sorry, you can say 60% founders and employees, because usually it's always advisable that you keep something aside for employees. So you can say, you know, my cap table has 40%, 50% founders, 10% employees, 30% investors. That's good. That's the way to respond to that question of, you know, what's your cap table like? Or and they may ask further and say, how many founders do you have? How many co-founders? How many, you know, what's the split between the co-founders? You can just, but that answers the question. Now, send me your cap table is something else entirely, you know, and the cap table, but it's similar anyway. But usually when you want to send a cap table, I feel like that's the class on its own, because usually you need to show name of shareholder, percentage owned, amount invested, and what valuation. So sometimes you've done a lot of rounds. You know, your cap table can be multiple tables or multiple tables tied into one. Sadly, I don't have an example I can show you, but maybe you should be able to find something online. But it's still around, you know, your equity structure. So equity structure, capital raised, percentage owned, so valuation, you know, pretty much is what you would find in, if you are supposed to send on my cap table. I'm not sure that I can model that question verbally, because you probably need a class to learn how to create a cap table. Let me see if you can find anything online. But yes, you are correct. You know, it's about equity ownership. But just, you know, do some reading up. Because, you know, so it's like, and it can even be one table that just shows, you know, Series A, Series B, you know, but generally the cap table must show shareholders, percentage owned, valuation, something like that. Number of shares, valuation. So
okay.
What we can just do though, so I don't want to promise because of my schedule. If maybe FSI can organize another class, or maybe you can just take note of.
Yeah, I'm taking note of that.
Of a simple cap table. It can just be like maybe 45 minutes class or something. I don't think it's going to take 2 hours. I can just do like a run through of, you know, how to create your cap table on an Excel sheet.
Okay, I'll definitely.
You're on mute, Laolu.
Listen, yeah, I said I'll
Yeah.
definitely get back to you on that.
Okay. So Bernard, but that's it, right? If they ask you verbally, it's just about your equity structure. So just go with this is what the founders own, this is what the investor owns, and that answers that. But send me your cap table. You can, for now, till you have a proper class of how to set it up. Just check on Google, you get some templates and try to build something around it, but that's just it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Do we have other questions again? From anyone? I think that will be all. No other question. Thank you very much, Mr. Olaolu.
All right,
And if you have not taken the poll, kindly do that. And please, if you are not on the WhatsApp group, please let me know. You can send me a message directly here, or you can just raise your hand so I can add you, so I can send you the video link for today's recording almost immediately after the class. So in the absence of that, I think we'll have to call it a day. Thank you very much, Mr. Olaolu, again. That was MBA style class that you wouldn't get outside for free, and we are getting it for almost nothing here on this platform. Thank you very much, sir, again. And in the absence of any other thing, we'll call it a day. Thank you very much for everyone that participated, for the questions, for the additions, for everything. Thank you very much. Bye for now.